Greetings, Exiles. This is more Lockmere. I'm going to be going over a low-life Righteous Fire, Scorching Ray, and Arc Ignite build, which is a lot. It uses Weapon Swap in order to clear and have single target at the same time. I'm going to go through some of the mechanics. We're going to look at the passive tree, links, all of that information. And first off, I'm going to do a short expo. I'm going to go through this map. It's not super juiced or anything like that, but it's at least juice adjacent. 82% item quant, burning ground, whatever, less effective curses. And I'm going to be running a few scarabs on it, Legion, strongbox, breaches, and just a sacrifice, because adding too much is just going to slow down everything. So let's get right into this.
Just need a moment to catch my breath.
I still want to loot stuff, so I'm going to try to resist the urge right now and just do this video real quick. Oh, and a harvest. No, we're not. We're going to skip the harvest for the purpose of the video, because like I said, too much juice and the video just takes forever. We're also going to skip that because that just takes time. But this build can do those very easily. Freaking firing squads. I missed something. That's weird.
Just need a moment to catch my breath.
So as you can tell, burning ground, which sometimes is an issue for some certain builds, I don't even notice it on this one. And that's just due to the regens being so high and some of the specifics about using Trickster, which I'm going to get into here in a few minutes. Where's that one last guy? That's so weird. There he is. Running away. Whatever. Alright, so now for the boss. For bossing, it's just super easy. We weapon swap. Ta-da! Done. Alright, so. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I'm going to try to step out and go over what just happened. Alright. So this is a low-life Righteous Fire build. Using Trickster, what we are doing is trying to get as much damage out of it as possible. A lot of Righteous Fire builds will end up with like 2.4 million, maybe 4 million DPS, and cap out at like 1.5-ish million DPS against Shaper. My build is at 13.6 million DPS, and it's just under 8 million Shaper DPS. So we're going to go over exactly how that is capable of, you know, getting those numbers, and just look at some of the stuff on the build. So first is the tree. It's a reasonably basic Righteous Fire, you know, energy shield tree, and I've revised it multiple times over the course of the league. This was my league start. I started it off hybrid, and then migrated it into energy shield, and then migrated it into low life, and played with a whole bunch of different mechanics along the way. So I've gained a lot more knowledge about how this particular style of build functions. And there are certainly things that I could do to make the build stronger for Righteous Fire or Scorching Ray that I have not done because I am doing Arc Ignite, because I've always wanted to play Arc Ignite. So, right out the gate, you know, you go through Evasion Energy Shield. When I was first leveling up and everything, I went through Elemental Damage, right? Grab the hybrid nodes, Written in Blood, Melding. Drop down over here for Foresight, get some Aura Effectiveness. Grab Soul Thief, Ghost Dance, come over here for Breath of Flames and Holy Fire. Grab Acrimony, you know, a whole bunch of those relatively basic stuff. Some of the stuff that I did slightly differently is I went down here for Divine Judgment and grabbed this Jewel Socket. And I also, I had to get some stats off of the tree, just because my gear is so specific and unique heavy. It's not super heavy, but there's some required uniques for the build. I needed stats that RNG was just not giving me. Additionally, I've got a few extra points spent for a chance to ignite and chance to ignite here that on a full Righteous Fire build you wouldn't really do. So very likely this whole section down here I probably wouldn't even go to Faith and Steel here. It would end up being more into an Elemental Mastery over here, probably picking up Leaf Shade and maybe a couple of other things. But I need the chance to ignite because Arc doesn't really have a chance to ignite. So let's talk about some of the specific mechanics behind how this works and why Trickster instead of Guardian or the new favorite that everybody's doing, Inquisitor. So Inquisitor and Guardian are extremely good for sustain. They're extremely good for defense. Trickster is extremely good for damage, and that's why I went this way, because I want Righteous Fire, and I want to be able to do Righteous Fire on boss fights, and I don't want them to take 15 minutes. A lot of us by now have seen videos of like the AFK Righteous Fire Inquisitor doing the Feared or the Uber Elder and stuff like that, and that's fantastic, and that's great. This build cannot do that. You need to know the mechanics and be able to move around, because yes, I have 7.1k shields. Yes, I've got 18,000 evasion. That actually goes up quite a bit when I use Defiance Banner and then pop my Flask. 38,000 evasion. You could still get hit. You will still get hit. You will still get popped. So, wow, this is really laggy. Okay, so some of the specifics, some of the mechanics here that are very good. So using Ghost Dance and Soul Thief with Trickster, with Patient Reaper, we have a whole bunch of life recoveries, we have a whole bunch of energy shield recoveries on kill. And then because of Ghost Dance, the Ghost Shrouds, we're generating Shrouds that give us back energy shield when we do get hit. So I have to get shotgunned, I have to get hit multiple times in succession in order to actually die. Something else that we're doing in order to help sustain Righteous Fire is I'm running Fragile Bloom. Fragile Bloom gives you stacks of Fragile Regrowth, which gives you life regen. It is very easy to pick up a Fragile Bloom, especially even early in the league, with a Corrupted Blood cannot be inflicted on you. That is, it's not a required jewel for the build. As you can see, I'm sustaining, or no. So, it is very, very, very recommended for the build. It's not strictly required, but it's hard to sustain Righteous Fire without it, unless you're killing constantly for regens. But what this also does is it takes Corrupted Blood off of, or out of the equation. So it's extremely good for those reasons. And especially on lower levels with significantly less regens or significantly less recoveries from the tree, it really helps you sustain Righteous Fire quite easily. Now the other thing, the next thing is going to be this cluster here, this large cluster. Fire large cluster is not mandatory for the build, but it makes it significantly better. And those types of clusters typically are going to be found in no matter what kind of Righteous Fire build or Scorching Ray build that you see. Probably even Ignite builds, but I haven't looked too deep into the Ignite aspect of it specifically. Just how I was able to get it to work with this particular build. So this cluster, all we're looking for is an 8 passive large cluster, eye level 68 or below, or 68 to 50, because we want those brackets of passives, and just 3. That's all we're looking for. Preferably like Burning Bright, Widespread Destruction, and something. I ended up with Cremator. Cremator's not bad. 30%. The other good one, I forget the name of it, Covered in Ash or something like that. It's 35% fire damage. So this is a lot of damage, a little bit of AoE, which helps our Righteous Fire AoE, but which directly translates into clear. But the AoE doesn't really affect Arc Ignite or Scorching Ray. It does affect Righteous Fire. So really, any of them, any 3 is going to be ideal here. I did end up also splurging for a Watcher's Eye. It is not strictly necessary for the build, but it was significantly more fun. And because I am a weird individual, I actually have all of the gear that I've leveled and used throughout the league. So prior to that Watcher's Eye, I was using this jewel. And all you're looking for is Energy Shield, Fire Damage, Fire Dot Multi. And I ended up picking up a little bit extra chance to ignite on this one. So, not super difficult to find, not breaking the bank. I ended up with a whole bunch of similar ones. Fire Dot Multi, Damage Over Time Multi, Energy Shield Recharge Rate. That's less than ideal, but that's the type of stuff that you're looking for. Energy Shield, AoE damage, that's going to affect Righteous Fire. Now, let's talk about the ascendancies. So my very first ascendancy was Patient Reaper, because that makes it significantly easier to level and get recoveries through. I then went up to Prolonged Pain for more damage over time and reduced effective damage over time against me. My next one, I believe, was actually Swift Killer for Frenzy Charge Generation, Power Charge Generation, and increased damage with charges. And then I grabbed Escape Artist. And because we're in this new league here, I picked up these Forbidden Flesh, Forbidden Flame that gave me Heartstopper. Heartstopper, a lot of people have been saying bad things about it. They don't like it. They don't think it's good for Trickster. Heartstopper is amazing for the Trickster, and it is especially insanely good on a low life Righteous Fire, or a Righteous Fire in general. Also, these, let's step back into the cemetery because it's still open. This Burning Ground here,
Just need a moment to catch my breath.
it works against the Burning Ground. When we have Heartstopper right here, this Burning Ground is completely ignoring it. When we're in Delve, we're going through Delve in the darkness, Heartstopper will completely stop the damage from the shadow. Poison, bleed, anything that's damage over time, you take no damage from any damage over time from any source. When that's up, you can go into a Cirrus Cloud for all of 5 seconds. I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure those are dots and not a whole bunch of hits. But that's, you get the idea. Time of Need from the Guardian is fantastic, but it's a burst regen. This is a, you do not take damage over time for that amount of time. So it's not that we're significantly offsetting the damage from our Righteous Fire. You have stopped taking the damage and you are able to recover it. So on that note, let's take a very quick look at the Pantheon. I'm running Soul of Aracali, that's fully upgraded, and what that gives me is reduced damage from damage over time, so it's helping me mitigate the burning damage that I'm going under with Righteous Fire. But also, 20% increased recovery rate of life and energy shield if you've stopped taking damage over time recently. So when a Heartstopper procs, for all except 1 second of it, not only are we not taking any damage over time whatsoever, we are actually getting 20% increased recovery rate. So it is, we are not just not regenerating, we are over regenerating and then getting a boosted regeneration from that. Also, the Chaos resist against damage over time. Because of the gear that I've been able to accumulate, my Chaos res is 54%, so my Chaos res against dot is 75. Desecrated ground, poisons, stuff like that are I don't even notice them. Additionally, the Minor Soul is just Ralakesh. I could probably do something better, like Ugul, reduced reflected damage, and reduced effective curses. But I do this one just because I don't want to think about bleed, even though I actually, because my flask changes, I don't have immune to bleed anymore. It used to be on one of these guys over here, probably that one right there, so immune to bleed and corrupted blood. So I swapped that one out, so I'm using Ralakesh. Honestly, upgrading Ugul would be better in the long run, and like I was saying, some of these alterations on the tree, if I didn't go over here, I would probably end up, where is it, going through Asylum here and taking reduced effective curses as well. So you become essentially ignoring curses just with a couple of alterations to the tree. Now, something else about the tree that I had a lot of fun with was a specific mechanic. This is just an aside real quick. Sudden Dawn, chance for energy shield recharge rate to start when you kill an enemy. The reason I am pathed through back here, it saves me 1 point. It saves me 1 point going up this way instead of coming down and across through Foresight up into here. This would be a more ideal path, and it's a more traditional path that you would typically see. I saved 1 point going this way because I also dropped down here for the same number of points and picked up Wicked Ward. Wicked Ward gives you energy shield recharge not interrupted if it began recently. Combined with that headpiece is you have an 18% chance on kill to essentially get Vol Discipline. It was a very fun mechanic that I played with for a lot of the mid-league. So that's as an aside. So continuing on with more information specifically about the build, let's get into the actual gear itself. So this build does use weapon swap. It also uses every single socket, which is very atypical. So I have Chevron's Wrappings. It's basically mandatory for a low-life Righteous Fire build. I have Presence of Chayula. I have it with Arsonist allocated, which is just a little bit more fire dot multi and some life regen. You could put Charisma instead, which would probably be better. It feels comfortable running with Arsonist, so that's what I'm doing. Next is Stormfire, which is a required unique for this particular build because I'm using Arc to generate ignites, and this enables that entire effect. Your lightning damage could ignite. It's right there on the last one. I did quality for elemental damage modifiers to increase. I was trying to increase the burn damage for each time you've shocked a non-shocked enemy recently. It does not increase the maximum, it just increases how much that minimum is. So that's probably not the best idea. You would probably be better off doing an elemental resist on it in order to lessen the load of your other rares or uniques that you're trying to accumulate for the build. And then the other items, it's belt, gloves, boots, ring, and helmet. So these areas is just whatever rares that you can get. The type of stuff that you want to look for are move speed, resistances, and energy shield. So my helmet and all of these pieces of gear have clear upgrades I could be doing. Like these gloves are Arcanist gloves. Clearly, if I had like sorcerer gloves, and I've been trying to work on crafting sorcerer gloves and whatnot throughout the league, and I just did not have very good luck on all of these pieces. So you can get significantly higher energy shield on the gloves. I also needed dex on the gloves, even with dex on the tree. With the boots as well, it would be good if you could get like strength on the boots or something like that, and then dex on the ring. I got really lucky with this ring and ended up with a fire res ring with dex on it, so I was able to with dex fractured on it, so I was able to roll it until I got resists on it. And all of these pieces, including this cluster jewel, the vast majority of my gear I've crafted myself over the course of the league or gotten incremental upgrades. So it's not like you need to have 20x before this build becomes viable. This is looking at how this build functions towards the end game with all of the gear I've accumulated, but know that I have been using similar gear prior to this. This belt is actually probably one of the strongest belts I've ever crafted. It's energy shield, percent energy shield, with a side of energy shield, and strength and int, which also gives energy shield with resist. So that actually, I had to build this 3 times this league, because I messed it up twice on accident, and that was a not fun like 2 weeks. But all it was spamming dense fossils and spamming harvest defense rerolls, and eventually I ended up getting T1% T1 flat. So let's talk about links. So I'm running a 2020 Vol Righteous Fire, and again, I have not been having the greatest luck this league. I've sold probably 5 or 6 level 20 Vol Righteous Fires. Where is it? Here, I have... Okay, I'm out of Righteous Fires, but I was leveling a whole bunch of Disciplines and Arcs and Purity of Fires, trying to get like a 2120 Vol Righteous Fire, double corrupting it in Doriani's Institute. I had no luck with that. So the DPS on this build can go up, because, like I said, this is not the absolute best min-max gear. You know, theoretically, you could double corrupt a Chevron's Wrappings for, you know, +2 level of AoE, +2 level duration gems, and you'd get another 4 levels on Righteous Fire out of that. So I've not been doing any of that stuff. So, this is a 2020 Vol Righteous Fire with Awakened, and this build does use a lot of Awakened gems, because I've gotten myself to a position to use them. As you can see here, I've got the 2020s from leveling up the build itself naturally, of all of the stuff that I've been able to upgrade to the awakened versions of the gems. So it functioned just fine off of everything else. The DPS numbers are going to be lower. Some boss fights are going to take a little bit longer, but the clear speed through the map doesn't feel very noticeable if you're not able to afford the awakened gems. But this is pretty much the only build I've played this entire league, so I decided why not, and I just went all out on the awakened gems. So I have Righteous Fire, Awakened Elemental Focus, Awakened Burning Damage, Awakened Swift Affliction, Awakened Increased Area of Effect, and Concentrated Effect. So that is the 6-link setup for Righteous Fire, and all of them are just level 5. I mean just, but they're level 5s, 20% quality. I haven't corrupted any of them to try to hit 6s. Clearly the damage would go up if that were the case, if it was super min-maxed, right? Now, let's talk about the arc real quick. So mine is a Vol arc, and I did pop it a couple of times if you were keen-eyed while looking at it. I have it in Martyr of Innocence. Martyr of Innocence grants you Battle Mage. It's giving you the extra physical damage and elemental damage from the staff as added spell damage. So it's helping boost our arc damage quite a lot. A lot of Ignite builds will use Martyr of Innocence. As I leveled this build, I actually leveled it with Hexblast Ignite, with Martyr of Innocence, because those are the bigger numbers that I'd seen. So while doing that, I was actually on this side of the tree over here. I came down for Malicious Intent, and as I passed by here, I grabbed Doomsday and Skittering Runes, just to boost up my curse a bit. So I'd sit there and curse, Hex Blast, curse again, and run in circles until the thing died. I did not have a good experience with that. The DPS felt very low, even with everything set up. It helped me progress through, but Arc Ignite is significantly more entertaining to me. But that's why people use this. They use Martyr of Innocence specifically for Hexblast Ignite, especially. So our Arc itself does not have a chance to ignite. With Stormfire, Lightning can ignite. It's a required unique for that mechanic. So, going into that, I have Ignite Proliferation, Anomalous Combustion, Awaken Deadly Ailments, Burn Damage. See, here we are again. I could have gone up for another Awaken Burn Damage. This one's just a Burn Damage, 2020. And Cruelty. Ideally, this would actually be a little different. I would probably go with... I forget. I haven't looked at it in a minute, so I forget what... but Cruelty would be... I think Swift Affliction instead. And I just couldn't get the colors right on this. I even tried to Varici 1 to 6 White Socket, and he gave me 1. In fact, I did Varici 1 to 6 White Sockets 3 times this league, and he gave me 1, 1, and... oh. I guess I only did it twice, but yeah, he only gave me 1 socket both times. So ideally, this would have a Awaken Swift Affliction and Awaken Burn Damage instead of the Burn Damage and Cruelty. And the only reason for that is Cruelty's numbers can get high, but the numbers on Swift Affliction are more consistent. So I prefer that over Cruelty, especially for single target. Cruelty feels bad for single target. But what this enables us to do is we get our arc to... where'd you go? Nope, that's the ball. Where's the arc? Our arc has a 75% chance to ignite. When we use flammability, if we use flammability, it's it is 100%, because cursed enemies are 25% chance. So that gets us up to 25%. The issue with that, or the thing about that is, it is not necessary to ignite 100% of the time because of Ignite Proliferation. If we get an Ignite in a pack, it will chain Ignite inside of that pack. So as long as we ignite somebody, everyone's getting ignited. Additionally, with Ignite Proliferation, the ignites stay on the corpses until the duration of the ignite is over. What that means is if you ignite something and then it dies, it drops basically our own burning damage on the ground. So as the monster walks past, another thing will hit that same ignite and die, or potentially die. So it feels extremely good, especially for clear, by using ignite proliferation. That's also why I was not liking, oh, no, it's Moku's Embrace. I probably don't even have one. Pyre. No, it's Pyre. So the Pyre unique ring is really good in general. It's got a whole bunch of burn damage on it. The issue with it is enemies ignited by you are destroyed when they're killed. So that removes their body from the ground, and it actually makes it increases the damage of the ignite and allows you to kill stuff faster, but it slows down your clear because the corpses are no longer killing stuff on the ground. If that makes sense. Hopefully it does. So, the other things, I have a relatively decent Hubris Circlet. Some of the stuff that you want to look for on this is, I was using a whole bunch of the new influence gear. So, getting increased energy shield from equipped gloves and boots. I think aura reduction is on here now. I ended up getting increased damage per power charge, which is nice. These aren't even very high quality. You just want, on this socket, or on this area, you want a whole bunch of energy shield. That's the primary thing you're looking for. And whatever resists that you're missing. If you can get increased aura effect, mana efficiency reduction, whatever it's called now, that would be better. You can also get stuff like nearby enemies have lower resists. That's extremely good on some influences. I think it's Warlord influence, but I think it's on one of the Eater of Worlds or Searing Exarch influences, something like that. Those are good options there. So the gems in it are Divergent Malevolence, and again, that's not necessary that you get it Divergent. I just did it because it boosts my Arc Ignite just the smallest amount, increased damage with the ailments. Defiance Banner, which I'm not always running, and I'll cover that here in a second. Discipline, again, I was not getting blessed by RNG this league. I kept trying to get a corrupted 2120 Vol Discipline, and it just was not giving it to me. So this is just a 2020 or a 20 Vol Discipline. Ideally, at 2120 Vol Discipline, I would have more energy shield, and really that's it. And then a Grace, and I got lucky. This is the very first Grace that I had on the character, and I went ahead and Vol'd it, and I hit a 21 Grace. So that actually helped quite a bit. But you can see there, it's just Malevolence, Discipline, and Grace, and then the sometimes Defiance Banner, and I'll cover that here in a second. On the gloves, my gloves are just Dex, Resists, as high energy shield as you can get, and then because of these new influences, I ended up with 7% fire dot multi. You can also hit, I think on the other one, right now it's chance to hinder enemies on hit with spells. I don't care about that. I was not getting good RNG, go figure. Ideally, you could do something, I think one of them is, enemies ignited by you have reduced fire res. That would be ideal, because Arc Ignite, that's exactly what we're doing. In the gloves, I've got my Flammability, which I self-curse. I don't have anything neat set up to automate that process. Flame Dash, which is my move skill. Steel Skin, which I have on left click to remove bleed. It's because the build is so starved on attributes, even putting attributes on my tree, or working them into my tree, I'm not able to get that leveled up to 20 because of some of the options that I've had to make. So, it's not fully leveled, whatever. And then the last one is Temporal Rift. I've been having a huge amount of fun with Temporal Rift. And I'll cover that here in a second. My boots, Energy Shield, Resists, Move Speed. For the influences, increased cooldown recovery rate of travel skills feels really, really, really good on Flame Dash. It helps Flame Dash come off of cooldown faster, so you're able to use it more frequently. It feels really nice. The other thing here is drop Scorched Ground while moving. The Scorched Ground is -10 to all elemental resistances. So as I'm moving, you can see this ground right here. That is what that Scorched Ground is. So when I come up to a boss, I will come here and then channel for a little bit, walk around to the other side and channel, just to make sure that he's always standing on Scorched Ground. So that's the mindset with that. Okay, I'm trying to speed it up a little bit because I feel like I'm slowing down on the explanation of this, and it needs to actually have the information going. So, now, this build uses weapon swap. I use Arc Ignite for clear because my Arc Ignite damage is actually pretty freaking good. It's a good amount of DPS on the Ignites. It is not good enough, and in my opinion, having played Arc throughout, or Ignite throughout this whole league, even looking at some of the highest DPS, like Elementalist Witch builds that use Martyr of Innocence, Hexblast Ignite, and all of this other stuff, Ignite, I don't feel, has the single target potential that some other options give us. So, I don't use it for single target. What I do is I weapon swap to Searing Touch. And again, this is going to be a not optimal. In the realm of theory crafting, you could end up with a rare staff that has even higher fire spell, all fire spell skill gems, and dot multi and fire damage and all of that stuff. So you could potentially find a unique, or a rare that is better than this unique. But this, remember, we're kind of quasi-budget here, even though we do have some valuable equipment that I've been able to accumulate over the league. Searing Touch is extremely easy to obtain and does very interesting stuff for your Righteous Fire damage, let alone the ability to have a second 6-link for single target. Now, the Scorching Ray links itself. We're going to talk about that for a second. I was able to purchase a 2120 Scorching Ray for like 5 chaos. So it was not super expensive. I was using my own Scorching Ray that I had leveled up. I just didn't want to take the chance for it, and I decided I'm done with leveling gems. I can just go ahead and buy some stuff. So I'm using a 2120 Scorching Ray with an Infused Channeling, Awakened Elemental Focus, Awakened Control Destruction, Awakened Burn Damage, and Awakened Swift Affliction. So that setup there with Infused Channeling gives us the ability to significantly boost our single target because it's a 6-link Scorching Ray. The Infused Channeling helps boost Righteous Fire. The +2 gem levels of Searing Touch increase Righteous Fire. The burn damage, or the fire dot multi and fire damage of that also boosts Righteous Fire. And what's funny is because of the 2 gem levels, if you notice the AoE radius actually increases when I weapon swap. I just thought that was a funny little aside. Here's another thing. So my arc, and I was talking about getting to this with Defiance Banner. So my arc costs 90 mana to cast. I have 140 mana open. So I can't sit here and spam it unless I'm killing stuff because my mana regen is just a little anemic. A little too anemic for that. Typically it's not an issue because as soon as stuff dies, I'm at full energy shield and full mana again. Scorching Ray, though, is a little bit different. And it's quite a bit of mana as well for a cast per second, but it's a lower value. So what this does is it allows me to squeeze in Defiance Banner. So I have all of my different auras on here, and there's Defiance Banner. I'm able to actually run Defiance Banner while using Scorching Ray. So in those times that you're against a single target and you would need the higher defenses, you've got the higher defenses. If you really wanted to micromanage it, it's super not important. But if you really wanted to do some weird stuff, you could sit here and like weapon swap, use it and drop it, and then stay inside the radius. This game is faster than that, but that does exist as an option. So Scorching Ray. Also, on those boots, I have Anomalous Arrogance, Purity of Fire, Enlighten, and Summon Skitterbots. So Skitterbots giving us that shock effect on bosses and everything significantly helps our damage. Weapon swapping to Searing Touch helps our Purity of Fire a little bit. Anomalous Arrogance puts it over on our life. And we only needed a level 3 Enlighten, so I was able to get that not significantly cheaper, but it was more affordable than trying to get even like a level 1 and level up myself. You can just get a corrupted level 3, because level 4 corruption isn't necessary. We don't really have very much else to squeeze in. Ideally, if you were able to get like reduced effect, what is it even called these days? They keep changing the name of it. Increased mana reservation efficiency. So if you were able to get the mana efficiency on your helmet and probably anoint that for charisma instead, and maybe get enlightened to 4, you could probably free up a little bit more life, even though that's not super necessary, but it would probably help you out with your mana side enough where you could run Defiance Banner all the time. But I did not find it necessary. So right before I go into a boss fight, I'll sit there and be clearing with Arc, having fun, weapon swap, hit that, go into the boss fight. Whoops, I did not go on D&D. Okay, so last couple of notes real quick are Flasks. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I've got a Jade Flask with increased evasion on it. That is what we're using as a defensive layer. I have a Quicksilver Flask with immune to freeze and chill, just because it's super easy. I have a Ruby Flask, which helps us mitigate Righteous Fire damage, which is very standard for an RF build, with immune to shock, because shock has killed me probably the most out of pretty much anything over the years that I've been playing. I also finally went ahead and got a Bottled Faith. This is my very first league using it. I've always wanted to use one. I've never really had the opportunity to use one. It is also strictly not necessary. It's one of the reasons my DPS numbers are at 13.6 million. But prior to that, I was using just this. Actually, this is not even a good one. It's a Sulfur Flask for the increased damage and the Consecrated Ground for bosses. And it ended up giving me spell damage leached as energy shield. Ideally, being able to get something with like reduced effective curses or something like that on the tree, where you're also getting reduced effective curses here and reduced effective curses there, and then reduced effective curses here, makes you basically curse immune at that point. But I just didn't have that luck. Ended up with spell damage leached as energy shield, and then went, why not? I can afford it, and I got a Bottled Faith for the first time with the new Kyrix Pass, which makes it look fantastic. And then the last one is an Enduring Eternal Mana Flask of the Order for the 3% life regen per second. I also killed a Mastermind like 3 or 4 times this league. She never dropped me a flask, so I had to go out and find somebody to help enchant that for me. What that does, though, is it significantly increases your mitigations and your recoveries for those boss fights. So what we can do is sit here and run up to the boss, pop all of our poppables, and then pop 5, and we don't have to worry about mana as long as that's going. And typically things die before then. So that's basically this build in the nuttiest of shells. But before we are done, we're going to take a look real quick at the path of building itself. Alright, so this is the path of building for it. You can see it's the exact same stuff. I've imported the character, it works, whatever. So, you can see on the configuration, I've configured it for full DPS, those are the numbers, 13.6 million combined with Scorching Ray at 8 stages. Another quick note, ideally, the way to make the build stronger would be, instead of going for Swift Killer and then picking up Heartstopper with the Forbidden Flame and Flesh, you would go Heartstopper and pick up Swift Killer with the Forbidden Flame and Flesh, because the small passive here is just charge duration. The small passive going the other way is energy shield and evasion. So you would actually get better defenses, just ever so slightly better defenses going that way. Is just the Heartstopper ones were like 30 chaos a piece, the other ones were like 15 exalts a piece, so I went for the cheaper option. Okay, anyways, so for the purposes, or for full disclosure, full transparency, I'm going to walk you through the configuration that I've done. The enemy is on Scorched Ground, because that's how we do. We walk around and make sure that we Scorching Ray the boss. The enemy is on Consecrated Ground because of the Flask. Where to go? Bottled Faith. I've killed recently. I've killed an enemy affected by my dot recently. I have 10 fragile regrowth stacks. I use Frenzy and Power Charges because by the time we get to a boss, we're going to have all of those charges. Infusion is active because we're using Scorching Ray. I've cursed the boss, so it's at max doom. So nothing here should be, it's not like I use Onslaught and Tailwind and all of these crazy things. Oh, look, I'm not even on Consecrated Ground myself. That's funny. Whatever. But you can see my total net regen actually goes up quite a bit if I'm actually on my own Consecrated Ground. It actually goes up 50%. Whatever. So there's nothing like super crazy about this particular stuff. They're on Scorched Ground, they're on Consecrated Ground because I've got the Bottled Faith, and that affects the numbers ever so slightly. 1.1 million DPS difference. So, Scorching Ray at 8 stages, it gets to 8 stages very, very quickly. Only about as fast as Infusion gets active. What that does is it also gives the enemy exposure at 25%. And we have our Vol Righteous Fire, we have the Scorching Ray here. So this is the Scorching Ray DPS is 6.9 million DPS just using the 8-stage Scorching Ray. If we go to Vol Righteous Fire, the Righteous Fire is at 2.5 million DPS. So what that means is, when I am sitting here like this, that circle right there is at 2.5 million DPS. I'm trying to flip between screens real quick. I have one monitor, please bear with me. So that's what my Righteous Fire DPS is, 2.5 million. And my Vol Righteous Fire is at 4.1 million DPS. Now, that does not include my weapon swap. So on my weapon swap with Martyr of Innocence, I have slightly different skills active, right? So my Scorching Ray is disabled. I'm not getting the +2 levels on a Righteous Fire off of all of that. So my Righteous Fire damage actually drops from 2.5 million down to 1.3 million. I tend not to use Vol Righteous Fire, which the Vol Righteous Fire damage now is what my standard Righteous Fire is with the weapon swap. So the Righteous Fire aspect of it is actually probably the strongest aspect of the build. Which, you know, it's a Righteous Fire build, so it should be. So my Vol Righteous Fire is like that. If you noticed while I was going through that map, I don't really use Vol Righteous Fire except against bosses. So my Righteous Fire damage is pretty low. And we can look at the Arc. The Arc Ignite DPS is... okay, yeah. the Arc Ignite DPS is 1.1 million. It's not fantastic, huge, amazing Ignite damage. What it is, though, is very effective at killing whites, blues, and rares. So this build is clear speed oriented when using Arc Ignite, and then when you get to that that boss, you swap over to single target, weapon swap it, and you jump up in DPS pretty high. So the full theoretical combined DPS using Arc Ignite sits at 5.8 million DPS. When you weapon swap it over, the full theoretical max DPS sits at 13.6. So you almost triple your DPS by weapon swapping. Now, one last thing is we're going to take a look at that. That is against not boss enemies. So what about Cirrus? What about Elder? What about Shaper? I fought the Elder and the Shaper for the first time this league just a few days ago. Honestly, they went down about as quick as the map boss that you saw. So looking at Cirrus DPS, my full combined theoretical maximum for Scorching Ray is just a hair, well, 7.6 million. Almost 7.7 million. That's still relatively good. That's pretty good DPS. That's extremely good, especially on a Righteous Fire build. Here's the thing about that is that is the theoretical total maximum. So that's assuming Vol Righteous Fire is going. Again, for total disclosure, right? So my Righteous Fire DPS, just walking around trying to avoid stuff and hit him, you're sitting at 1.4 million DPS. And the Scorching Ray, if you're able to get stacks up, is just a hair under 4 million DPS. So your true DPS is going to be closer to 2 million, maybe 3 million, being able to get a little bit of Scorching Ray on him while you're dodging around. But the full theoretical maximum that you can hit is a little more than 7.5 million DPS against Cirrus. And that's specifically Cirrus. His fight, you have to move around a whole bunch more. For Elder and Shaper, it's actually quite a bit easier to get to those full DPS numbers because you're able to sit and channel a little bit longer. There's positioning that you can do where you can get a little bit more safe. So the build actually works very nicely against endgame bosses. I've tried Maven for the first time, and it was user error. It was not build error, so I did not do well against the Maven. But that's a me problem, not a you problem, and not a build problem. So, hopefully, that describes what we're looking at fairly well here, and hopefully this build guide video and demonstration video, it was a T16 cemetery, right? So it's not like super endgame boss or anything like that. I also have exactly 0 video editing skill, so I'm not doing like a build compilation of endgame bosses and stuff like that. But hopefully you can imagine how effective that was, or after seeing how effective that was in that map, you can see how effective it would be for all of these other bosses. Another quick note about this is by running Arc Ignite, I built this because I wanted to experiment more with Legion this league. So this build does exceedingly well on Legion. As soon as the Legion monolith pops, you hit Vol Arc. The Vol Arc will propagate to almost the entirety of the Legion monsters, and because it doesn't deal direct damage, what'll frequently happen is Vol Arc will come off of cooldown before all of the things that the ignites have been applied to die. And what that means is as soon as it comes off of cooldown, it's almost instantly recharged and ready to go again. And so you can sit there and use it over and over and over again. Actually, I do want to demonstrate one more thing, so I'm going to quickly come in here and pick up all my pebbles. I'm not going to do that, though. and I'm not going to do this, but I want my pebbles. There's also something very, very, very interesting that we accidentally discovered while I was doing endgame grinds with my brother about one of the usually worst things about one of the worst things that you could possibly do to a Righteous Fire build is throw them in reduced recoveries, you know, reduced elemental weakness, all of that type of stuff. This build, even without the reduced effect of curses, just because the regens are so high, it does not care. And in fact, it does not care quite a bit. I'm going to try... I'm going to show you something. So typically on a Righteous Fire build, players cannot regenerate is a death knell. You can't run that map. Well, because of Heartstopper says we don't take damage over time. So, we will take damage, and then it'll stop, because Heartstopper goes off, and then it comes back. So you can run a cannot regen map. But wait, you said, I don't believe you, you just stepped in. Okay. Because we're recovering life and energy shield and mana on kill, as long as we can move, we can actually run a no regens map. And there you saw me use Temporal Rift. I use it as... there's not really a health potion for Energy Shield. They've got a couple of things like it, but not really. That gives us basically a health potion. So if I'm sitting here scouting out a map, or if I get into a hairy position or something like that, I can use that in order to move, reposition, get Energy Shield back. I can pop Vol Righteous Fire and then immediately hit Temporal Rift in order to get back up to full Energy Shield immediately. And there's Vol Arc. These actually died very quickly. But it comes back very quickly. And here you can see there's the arc, and as these additional adds are coming into that fire, oh, the fire's gone. But as these additional guys come by, you can see them burning from the ignite proliferation. This can run literally all different types of mods. It does not have Reflect Immune, but here's the thing about that is for Physical Reflect, it's not an issue really at all. For Elemental Reflect, it can be an issue, but all we do with Elemental Reflect is not use Vol Arc. If you use Vol Arc, you will die to Elemental Reflect. Just because you hit so many portions of it before the recoveries kick in from you killing stuff, because there's a little bit of a delay between actually hitting something with the arc, with the ignite, and the thing actually dying from it. So in normal use, you can run a Reflect map very easily, because you're going to hit a handful of them, but they're going to start dying. But if you do use Vol Arc, you absolutely will kill yourself.
Just need
And that's because Arc has awakened deadly ailments. It's less damage with hits, but more damage over time. So what that does is it reduces that initial first hit, which allows your Ignite to actually hit, proliferate, and deal the damage. And the reason why physical reflect is an issue is because Martyr of Innocence with Battle Mage, the physical damage of the weapon is added to physical damage on the spell. So you will get a little bit of tapping, self-tapping on yourself from a Phys Reflect map. You will absolutely notice when you're in a Elemental Reflect map. But just like what we just saw with that no regens map, you can still run them and be perfectly fine. You just have to be slightly more judgmental about what you're using when. And I think I don't have any reflect maps on hand because I've already run them all, and those are the things that I try to re-roll or roll over. I was doing a lot of cemetery this league, so hexproof is fine. You just won't use your curse, which is great because you have to sit down and consciously use your curse anyways. I typically will still throw curses on hexproof monsters out of reflex anyways. Less regen is fine because, as you just saw, we can run no regen. Reduced effect of non-curse auras from skills is annoying, but you can still run it. It is going to reduce your max fire res and whatnot because your purity of fire becomes weaker. Your energy shield is going to be weaker, so your DPS is going to drop off a bit, but you can still run it, and it's just going to feel a little bit more spicy. Elemental weakness, I've gotten my resists to the point right now where I'm overcapped enough. My cold res won't be capped. I don't think my fire res will be capped either, but my lightning res will still be capped in a elemental weakness map. Other than that, like, all curses really don't matter. Flammability, you can get hit with flammability and it'll do the same thing. Your energy shield will go down and then Heartstopper will activate and it'll pop right back up. Or you'll be killing stuff, so it doesn't matter because you're getting so many recoveries that your energy shield is still going to be topped off. Alright, and with those last couple of notes, I believe this little showcase is done. If you do have any questions, go ahead and ask them, and I'll try to respond on, I'm going to be posting this to my YouTube. It is currently Twitch streaming as well. I'm going to be making a post here in the very near future on Path of Exile subreddit that I know at least 2 people were interested in hearing more about how this build works. That's the entire reason I did this video. I did not expect it to be however long it is, but there's a lot of information in it, and hopefully I got through that pretty quickly and not too disjointedly. So thank you very much. Because GGG has told us for this next league 3.18, there's not going to be significant balance changes. They're going to change around a couple of mechanics like Rip Headhunter. This build will still work exactly the same way. It can only get better by having a little bit more time or a little bit more effort into getting like a 2120 Vol Discipline or level 6 Awakened Gems and all of that stuff. It will only be better next league. Some of the stuff that I learned through leveling, I leveled with Arc Ignite. I was able to afford this Stormfire ring on day 2 or 3 of the league. So I started leveling with it, and what I did was I had a 5-link chest, and then eventually a 6-link chest, and that's where I had my Arc Ignite, and I would gem swap for Hex Blast for a single target. What I would do differently is probably, if you're wanting to do Arc Ignite, just hold on to Stormfire or work on that later, but instead of a Hex Blast, I would probably do Fireball, and I would probably level Fireball and just hold on to Arc Ignite until you get more gear much later. use Fireball Ignite with Wall of Flames, because all of the synergistic stuff that we're doing to increase our Righteous Fire damage and the burn damage and everything like that is also going to affect the ignites for Fireball and the damage, the secondary burn effect from Wall of Flames, so it would probably end up being more effective used that way. Until you get to the point where you're able to start transitioning over to a Righteous Fire build, add in Scorching Ray, and then maybe, mess around with Arc Ignite. It took a lot of effort to get Arc Ignite to a comfortable place, but even without all of these Awakened Gems on actually, this one only has the 2. Even without these 2 Awakened... No, it's only got the 1. Without the Awakened Gem on it, it still clears well enough on a 6-link to be comfortable. But yeah, that's my suggestion. If you do decide to start leveling something like this, I also did a lot of weird tree stuff, which is going to be in the Path of Building. You'll be able to look at all of my previous trees in there as well. I highly recommend, if you decide to do something like this, just leveling it up with Fireball, Ignite, Wall of Flames, but pick up the stuff in order to transition over towards late game. Alright, and that will conclude this video. Thank you very much for watching, if you have been watching. If you have not been watching, you might want to consider it, because sometimes I'm amusing or entertaining. I don't know. I stated that like a question. Alright, well, I'm going to be including a link to my Path of Building in the comments down below, or in the information down below. I'm also going to put a link to my Twitch channel. If you're on my Twitch channel, I've got exclamation point for profile, I've got exclamation point for what, so you can get more information from that, and a link to my profile. So, with that being said, thank you very much for watching, and let's see what happens this coming next league, Sentinel. Alright, have a good day.